No, thank
Maybe
you.
like a couple days ago, I tweeted there was a Joe Rogan episode. It was with an astronaut whose name I've forgotten. I thought it was just an exceptionally good episode, just real recent, right?
Yeah.
And the guy was super fat, super interesting, and led this really, really cool life. And I talked about all these different things he was doing in his life on the Joe Rogan show. And it's just like, it was just a phenomenal guest for that. And I tweeted out that episode to my on my Twitter, and it was like, this is really fucking cool. And I immediately got one of the first comments back was essentially, I don't like Joe Rogan because of his political views. I'm just like, what in the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, how is this related to anything here? This is like,
you couldn't have asked, the origin of that, right?
And then I mentioned this in channel. Like, I think I was talking about today, and one of my mods was like, yeah, I don't like Joe Rogan. He's misogynistic. I'm just like, I watched a lot of Joe Rogan. It seems really weird to me that, and I've heard this before. I've heard this elsewhere, that this type of shit gets like projected that way. And it's just like, I don't know, this is for me a continuation of our previous conversation about this. This is the woke culture shit. And I find myself, granted, I'm a fucking white male living in northern Wisconsin with limited social interaction to some degree with a lot of people. But like at the same level, I fucking really don't like this shit of like it getting gated. Like, why am I not able to make my own decisions? Why aren't people making their own decisions about this shit? Why is this kind of like this person's a misogynist? This person's like, what was the other thing? He gets
transphobic.
Transphobic.
Yeah. What happened was that he said that he was probably going to vote for Bernie Sanders, or he might, something kind of almost wishy-washy. And so people who want to attack Bernie Sanders sort of.
It's before that. He's been hit with transphobic.
Well, no, this is brand new. It's gotten really big lately.
Yeah, I saw about this.
It's so the people that want to attack Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders retweeted like Joe Rogan saying that, or thanked him or something like that. And as a way of attacking Bernie Sanders, they bring up his quote unquote transphobia, which amounts to him saying that trans athletes shouldn't be competing against biological women, especially in combat sports. Mm-hmm. That's the most transphobic thing he said. Well,
which, by the way, is
joking around. He is a professional
hard
fucking comedian.
Yeah, which, by the way, is a super fucking hard thing to have to regulate. And I'm so glad I have no say in that whatsoever, because do your fucking best to find a way that makes people feel treated equally and does your absolute best to treat people equally while acknowledging biological differences and acknowledging that changing the makeup of your body also fucks with your biology. Good luck trying to legislate that. There's no happy middle line there.
They shouldn't be able to do it because they have very unfair advantages.
It seems obvious to me that, like, I agree with Kyle.
Well, but what's the flip side of that goes pretty easily, right? Like the flip side goes, okay, well, we don't want to take a group of people and say you can't compete in sports. So what do you do? What do you do with
I
people?
think you do that though. Yeah.
There's a lot of groups of people that we say
Really?
you can't compete in this sport.
I would say a similar
there are
thing.
rules.
I would say, you know what? You can only compete against others in the same space as you. And I'm sorry we don't have enough to field a big soccer league of former girls, but that's where we are.
Yeah.
If you
And
guys
at,
are willing
high
to
school level or like lower than that? Like,
my gosh,
because like,
how
some level you just
unfair
go,
is it? Like I watched, I think it was
it's not fair.
Massachusetts
But how unfair
or
is it
Connecticut
for like
long
the
distance.
super athletic guy like with the great genes going up against like the shitty guy who's had like a I mean like, there's differences there. What
Whoa,
level?
you're going the other direction with
Well,
it.
no, I'm not, because like what level of difference is acceptable for these kind of, especially the low key competitions? Forget for a second the harder questions of like Olympics or something, right? But if one of the complaints is this excludes a whole group of people from being athletic, which I agree with, especially when you're looking at something like middle school or high school or whatever this happens, like whenever you're starting to see these transitions occur, do we care that much on that level?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
We looked at the shot
What do we
put
do?
world record for women. We can all break it because we're made to do that really fucking hard. We can all break the world record for women's shot put. But when we're talking about combat sports in particular, it's absurd. We saw that report last week, that study that showed that men have 164% the punching power of women.
I saw that too.
In the study, the weakest man was much stronger than the strongest woman in the study. There are extreme outliers where there's some overlap, but that's incredibly extreme. What we're really talking about, especially in combat sports, is things like bone density and the effects of years and years of male testosterone.
Your shoulders, your hips,
and the requirements to say, oh yeah, I'm a trans athlete now. Like what are you're probably envisioning someone who's been on HRT for 8 years or something like that, right? And is and has suffered a much lower level of testosterone, but that's not required. It can literally be like that South Park episode when the macho man Randy Savage just decides to declare himself a woman and starts dominating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, to my point,
That was a good one.
which is the Joe Rogan, which is the reference to the Joe Rogan stuff, right? Which is like, I think this is a fucking minefield trying to legislate this, because I don't think there's a good answer that fits. And
There's a
you guys
great
are saying,
answer. No,
well, I don't agree with that answer solely, because I don't think it solves the entire problem of it. And the problem of it, well, what are we going to do with the whole group of people we're now excluding from this, who have every right to be fucking involved in this as well? So,
but
and
do
I
you
don't
have
know
a right as a if you're biologically male, do you have a right to compete in sports that are reserved for biological females? I don't think that you necessarily do. You can make a league for their own league, but
a league of their own. I want to watch that. There's one we can remake.
Well,
league of
that's
their
all,
own.
man.
that is the solution yet either, is it
That's a good
though?
one.
And the same reason that, like, for example, like men's sports tend to be like overfunded relative to that, more money in that compared to female sports.
They tend to be
as a
more
whole.
profitable.
well,
Yeah,
it's not.
and well, then you start.
appropriately funded because of how much more money it makes.
Don't even want to touch that.
Big WNBA fan, are
no
you?
thoughts one way or the other on that. But my point
Season
being that, are we
tickets?
going to really chop that into yet another? It's like we're going to add a third category, and it's going to be trans athletes. Probably a fourth category, because you're going to have trans women and trans men. As
Yeah.
I mean, you might have to, but I mean, you can atomize it as much as you want and be like, well, but what about the male who has really good genetics versus the male who doesn't? Life isn't fair. You know, I really wish that I was 6'10" and naturally ripped and could eat whatever I want. That'd be dope. But like,
isn't that
when you
point
see all
earlier,
these,
but the wrong way around? Like, if
no,
there's
you were
some
saying,
biological
where do we
advantage,
stop the fairness. Like, do we start implementing it with dividing the men into different categories? Which, first of all,
Right.
we do. They're called different tiers of sports. You know, there's varsity, JV. There's
Sure,
select
or
sports
weight
that you can go
categories,
and do.
sure, but
There's
there's
weight
still, like-
categories. But and there are so many stories. There was a huge, like, I think it was a lawsuit that came out this week where it was a bunch of high school girls being like, hey, we are signing this saying that we're losing scholarships. We're training our fucking asses off to get into these competitions, and we're getting butt fucked by people or by trans women who just are. There's no way on earth that we can get trained to the point that we can compete with them. Like, they're breaking our records. Like, it's depriving us of something that we feel we deserve. And so, like, what is the argument for these girls, like, who just want to be able to do their sport and have a shot at first place?
Yep.
Like, I
As
think that's a
I'm
fair
so glad I
concern.
don't have to legislate this, but like, my point to go kind of backwards, you know, the origin of this was, if he gets hit as a transphobic person for bringing up the challenge of this kind of shit, like, holy fuck, well, I'm screwed too, because these are complicated matters, and these are complicated matters that require thought and discussion. And I don't know what other way to do something like that. And you know, thank fuck I'm not involved in any of that legislation. But shit, that's not for me. It's not clear cut what an easy answer is for that.
I think it's more clear cut. I think the simplest thing is make it so it's a biological male league, a biological female league, and then you have, like, I guess, a trans league that would have it. So it'd struggle because the numbers
but
of
rationally,
trans people is so
internally, for your rationale,
a
for that,
trans
what is that? Just
1v1
kinda
basketball tournament.
exactly.
They play
That's going to be
horse.
the issue, especially or like on a smaller, like, rural high school, or even like a smaller area. Like, I grew up in my high school was a small high school with a small number of competitors to draw from.
Hypothetically, my body, I'm a senior in high school.
Okay.
Exactly the same. No hormones, nothing. I say senior year, I shave, grow my hair out long. I say I identify as a woman now. I'm keeping the name Taylor because it works.
Okay.
I'm joining the wrestling team, and I'm going to be a heavyweight. And women's heavyweight starts at, we'll even say that there are women out there who are as heavy as I am in high school. Is that fair to the women at the other schools who wanted to compete, that they have to compete against someone like me?
You're not
I
gonna.
like that you made it wrestling, because you might buck fuck them literally.
I would
totally disagree, Taylor. I believe there are, it's not even a belief thing. There are physical differences between men and women on average, right?
I'm just saying it's not fair to those women.
So I don't disagree with that,
Dude, heavyweight.
But I also
junior
don't agree
women's
that
wrestling. That's 220 pounds. Am I wrong about this? That's what it says here.
Is it like a newer bracket?
They're at 220. God damn.
Are they adapting that shit
So
as time
filthy.
goes on?
You talked about
That's a
like the
big-
stress and the pressure of
I
regulating
don't know
it.
if you could beat this girl.
I think this is interesting because Rogan's been under the microscope many times. And a lot of times he feels that pressure. It bugs him. With Phelan Fox, that's the name of the transgender female fighter. He's like, yeah, but I was right. Fuck all those people. He's like, I was just right. She had man hands, man skeleton, man muscles. She was a man in there. She broke a woman's orbital bone in her face because that woman was fighting against a man.
And she didn't tell anybody that she was trans. Like people
Yeah.
are fighting her without knowing it. Now, like to his credit, Joe Rogan has said, hey, if she had came out and said, hey, I used to be a man, but now I'm a woman and I'm going to compete at the the 145-pound division of the UFC. Any women want to fight, let them raise their hands. If they want to fight a man, that's fine with me. But to force them to compete, to force them to compete not just in individual events, but with the world records in their sport. Imagine if there was a third fucking gender, and there was if there were Neanderthals still, right?
Mhm.
And the Neanderthal was like, I identify as a human. I'm gonna come down and play a little ball with you guys. We'd be like, whoa, what the fuck are you doing, Mongo? Get the hell out of here! You just crushed the world squat record.
The interesting thing about where I was going, if I could just finish, he's felt the pressure on a lot of things. When he did that Bernie endorsement, he was like, man, the problem with this show is it's become too big. And when I say something, it can impact things in real life. And I don't like that. It's too big. He felt a pressure on it. With Phelan Fox, he's like, fuck y'all. I'm just right. And that's how I feel about being in that hypothetical position of legislating this. I would have no trouble with it. Oh, what are you transphobic? No. I just see the difference between people.
Okay, but you guys I still haven't heard the solution, a working solution. You guys keep saying, okay, it's a different league. Or somebody, Kyle, I think.
Yeah, that's a real solution, having a different
But it isn't a real solution.
We can't all be winners.
It isn't workable for the numbers of people doing that. It's not a matter of winners. It's a matter of allowing like fucking high school athletics or college athletics to occur for people who want to be involved in that.
But just not against girls.
There are leagues that don't exist, right? Like if I liked field hockey, they'd be like, sorry, Woody, there isn't enough players to field a men's field hockey team.
Or saying like you have to compete in the sex you were born as, then.
I don't know. Feels like a fairly imperfect solution to that for me.
It is. The world's imperfect. That's the whole point,
Sure.
right? Like we don't all get our way, and we should probably learn that early. I just feel like if and these trans athletes that do this, they know what they're doing. Like Woody linked this
really?
Connecticut transgender sprinter.
Really? Because I could imagine loving a fucking sport. And then if if suddenly I'm like, I don't feel like a guy anymore. I don't feel like a man anymore. I feel like a woman and I transition, right? I can still love that sport. Why can't that be independent of that? And if I still love that sport and I still love that sport to that degree, why wouldn't I want to compete in that?
It's running. She can run anywhere, but she's choosing to go on a track and run against women for medals.
Yeah, I mean, like there was one example of a trans woman who, before she came out as trans, she was a runner for the men's team. And she was a very middle of the pack, not impressive at all. Becomes trans, jumps into the women's thing, and she's beating records by like a minute.
Yeah, but
like
when you do that for that, right? Like,
yeah. No, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that's just highlighting the extent to which it's not fair.
Sure. Or even not fair is not
There's
quite
really no
right
way to
that.
make anybody happy.
It's I mean,
about biological differences.
The place it's most pronounced has got to be in combat. It's got to be in combat and weightlifting. Things that are especially like upper body weightlifting, like bench press world record. I'm gonna look real quick. I'm curious to see what the women's bench press world record is.
I'm gonna guess triple. Right? I'm gonna guess the boys triplet. Is it? What do you guys think?
510 pounds.
So the women bench press record, single lift equipped with shirt, which matters. It's lifting shirt, belongs to Sandra Lahn of Sweden. She lifted 517 pounds. That's incredible.
I was close. I lost because I went under, but still.
No, wait. I think
I didn't bust. I didn't go over.
Yeah.
No, I win.
So 517. Taylor, any idea what the guy's record would be?
1,070.
Okay, so over twice as
double. Yeah, right around double.
And of course, they're all from fucking Northern Europe.
Yeah. Bjornsson.
Sorry, was that your guess or what you looked up?
My guess was 515. Yeah, or 510.
I would never have guessed that a woman could bench press 500 pounds.
I would never.
It would be much less if you
1,000.
If you looked and got rid of the shirt thing, it would be much less than that because that's like built to
I
let
have another
people
theory
more than they can.
What if she's on steroids? Right? What if her T level could be the highest on this call?
Yeah, steroids are probably.
Unlikely.
But let's see.
She's the world record bench press level. Those T levels came from a syringe, but they are the highest.
Bench press raw. Ooh. No, not the men's.
But anyways, I was just shocked how quickly that like went that route when I was like linking a totally innocuous video from Joe Rogan and this fucking astronaut. And it was an incredible thing. Nothing about Joe Rogan. I think he's an excellent interviewer. I think he's an excellent medium for bringing these people I would never have found otherwise on. And I love his fucking show for that. And I actually find him. I initially was kind of unimpressed with him, and then as I kind of watched longer, he's very subtle about his. I think what he does is very, very subtle. Like initially I'm like, why does he keep derailing the fucking guests and disrupting this with questions about like aliens and like UFOs and, like random weird shit. But he actually does an incredible job over time of drawing people out, of presenting a kind of a conversation to keep things moving and keep things interesting without actually presenting a whole hell of a lot of his ideas during most of that.
Yeah,
which I think is really good as an interviewer.
I haven't listened to a show in months, and I usually only will hop on. Like I'll probably listen to the Jim Norton episode because I like Jim Norton. I think he's hilarious. But like his political stuff, like when I've listened to that in the past, it's not like he's even getting in arguments. It seems like Rogan goes into those being like, all right, I'm going to kind of be a sounding board for their point of view. So if he's with like a right-wing person, he'll kind of adapt what they're saying, go, oh, okay, so you say this, and then what comes from that? Oh, okay. And if it's a left-wing person or whatever, he kind of, oh, and where do we go from here? What would you, like? He's good at that. Like he really does seem to be a sounding board for people's opinions but granted, I haven't listened to a political show of his in like a year, ever since the Bernie one. That's the last one I listened to.
I like the Bernie one. I thought it was a pretty good one too. Yeah. I think Bernie came out. I think that was a very good medium for, I think pretty much any politician to talk because they become less of a soundbite and more of a human being.
Joe Rogan, I'm telling you, the only reason I'm still in this race is because of Alpha Brain. Otherwise, I would have gotten on the wrong bus and ended up in fucking Toledo months ago. So, yeah, good for Joe Rogan, making millions, making stacks.
Good.
It almost sounded like he wasn't motivated by that. Like I think he enjoys doing the show and doesn't care about the money.
I bet he cares about it, but at the same time, he's in like that echelon of wealth where it's like, really, like I really don't need. I'm good. He's like Alex Jones, multi-millionaire.
Right. I'm totally guessing he's worth 40 million. I don't know. He was worth 22 million according to the internet a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But his show's done so well. Let's just guess he made 20 more. There are a lot of people at 20, 30, 40 million who feel like they're not nearly there yet. They could. There are people who just feel like that's not even halfway. And Rogan is like, yeah, it seems like enough.
Yeah. Does he have kids? Does he have one kid or something?
He has a couple of girls, I think. The two, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I know he's got girls.
Three.
I think it's 2 or 3. Yeah.
He really never talks about his family on his podcast. That's crazy.
He talks about him in his comedy show. He talks about like boys and girls at one point, and he's like, I like girls. I got a wife. I've got daughters. I love them, but I could beat the fuck out of each and every one of them if I needed to.
Even if I had the flu, it wouldn't matter.
I mean, Woody, you've got the flu right now, and you could take to task every member of your family.
Freya was here today. Stands no chance. Or George Foreman, you guys know.
Yeah.